Okay, so I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so ago, I finished watching The Wild Robot. And let me just say a few housekeeping things. Number one, it feels good to watch a DreamWorks movie again because I've been behind. Like, Chicken Run 2 came out and I haven't seen it yet. I know it's a good thing I haven't seen Megamind 2, but it's still out and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Kung Fu Panda 4 yet. And then The Wild Robot. So I was 4 movies behind. I had a twang there. That was weird. I was 4 film behind, I'll tell you what. Now I'm only 3, so I'll get to them if and when I get to them. I don't know. I feel like at Kung Fu Panda 4 at some point I do want to watch. I've heard very mixed things about it, but I know I need to watch it for myself. Chicken Run 2 is something I feel like I would want to watch to be like for completion's sake. I have zero real interest in watching Megamind 2. That one is definitely just for completion's sake. And even then, I don't know. I could maybe bullshit an argument to not see it. But I wanted to get that part out of the way. Number 2 thing that I wanted to get out of the way. I haven't done this in a while. Like, played something or watched something or read something and then just said, I gotta make a video on it. I want to react to it and talk about it. No, Project Horizons doesn't count. And the reason Horizons doesn't count is because I've read it before. This is a revisit. And 2, I've been talking about Project Horizons for like 10 years. I've just had Clay as my captive audience. Just talking, like seeing something new and then actively wanting to sit down and talk about. Like, I don't have any notes right now, I'll be honest about that. It feels nice because I really just like didn't do that a lot in October. Like, I watched Blair Witch a couple weeks ago. No, I watched it on like Halloween. Sorry. I watched it a few nights ago and I loved it and didn't do a video on it. I feel like I want to get back into the habit of doing this because I have a channel and I like making videos on my channel. And the number 3 thing that I have to say, actually getting into the movie. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. But it's no Ruby Gilman. Teenage Kraken. I don't know how many times I'm gonna reference Ruby Gilman Teenage Kraken in this video, but I want to do it a few times because I just like saying the full title. I just feel really giddy every time I do. But let's actually talk about the Wild Robot. No, actually, I have to talk about the bad guys. I believe I had said this while talking about the bad guys, either in my individual video on it or when I was doing the DreamWorks tier list with Clay, but I believe in one of those, I kind of referred to it as like a quintessential DreamWorks film. Not in the sense where like it's one of the best, it's like one of their crown jewels, you've got to watch it. But it's like this, I don't know, it feels like a distilled idea, like the platonic idea of a DreamWorks movie. Because while there are some phenomenal DreamWorks movies, like a friend of mine just watched The Last Wish a couple weeks ago, and I was so excited to talk to him about how much I fucking love it. And I've talked about genuinely how much the first Kung Fu Panda movie has not only grown on me, but has really hit me hard, and in a way has kind of reflected a lot of my own growth over the years. And I don't know, I guess in some ways also my own like, kind of issue. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. There's also some real primo dog shit DreamWorks movies. And I feel like on the whole, DreamWorks' library is above average. And I remember watching The Bad Guys and thinking, this feels like a pretty above average movie, and a lot of that is because of how much I personally like heists, and that bias did a lot for it. There's some ideas in the movie that are really fun, there's some lines in the movie that are really fun, there's also just some ideas and jokes that didn't really work, there's times that felt like kind of predictable, I knew where it was going. It was above average. I respected it more than I liked it. The Wild Robot is a quintessential DreamWorks movie in a completely different way. Because to me, it's like the perfect representation of the DreamWorks golden mean of meanness and like authenticity. This is a movie where there are a few times watching it where I wanted to say it was dark, but I was like, that doesn't feel like the right word. I think the better word is the film is very harsh. There is a lot, I mean, a lot of death in this movie. Like, okay, you know the scene from Shrek? The, where the bird gets really big and explodes, and then Fiona sees its 2 eggs in the nest, and then it cuts to her making the 2 eggs for breakfast? That scene will live in my head rent-free, like, forever. Or do you remember the scene in Madagascar where It's a Wonderful World is playing, and you just get all these animals dying in quick succession? I see trees of green, and then a fucking duck gets eaten by an alligator? The first, I don't know, like 11 minutes, because I think there was a point where like we actually paused it. We're like, how long was this? This was like an episode of SpongeBob in terms of its length. The first 11 minutes of this movie is just shit like that. There's a scene where Roz, which is the name of our main robot, there is a point in the movie. Let me go and say it's not actually talking about the movie proper. Full spoilers for the movie from this point onwards. So we give a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Full spoilers are live. So there's this point where Roz is like looking at these butterflies, and I think one like lands on her finger, and then a bird just like grabs the butterfly, just like snaps its wings off by eating it, and then something attacks the bird, and then Roz is just holding the bird's severed head in her hands. There's the, oh gosh, the scene made me laugh so hard when she's with Fink and Bright Bill, before he gets his name, like he's a little baby. And there's a crab that keeps going after Bright Bill, and Fink just picks up the crab and tosses it into like the boiling water, and this thing boils alive, and then Fink just rips off the claws and starts eating them. It is so hilariously in your face mean. It is so harsh. It's kind of amazing. And I don't want to say necessarily that like all the best DreamWorks movies are super mean, but it's something that I come to expect from their films. But like I said, there is a golden mean, like that golden ratio between being very harsh and being kind and being authentic. Look at Shrek. Shrek has that scene with the birds. It also has that one scene with the snake and the frogs being turned into balloons, and like, well, their lives are irrevocably fucked. You've got how like mean and spiteful it is toward fairy tales and toward Disney. You also have a film that's about how love does not matter. Excuse me. The outside is not what matters when it comes to love. It is who a person is. And when you can look past the... It's about layers. It's like if you can peel back a person's layers like an onion. And sometimes you really don't have to peel that many back. It's not like, oh, Shrek is a really good person. It's just super deep down. It's really not that deep. You just have to get through the gruff exterior that most people stop at. And I genuinely think that's a really beautiful theme. The Wild Robot is also a very authentic movie when it comes to that. And it's also a movie that's all about love. And different kinds of love. Well, actually, let me rephrase that, because it's never a movie that's really about romantic love. I guess there are different kinds, because it's parental love and like platonic love. My favorite scene in the movie, because as much as I want to say it's some of those mean fucking scenes, God, there's this one where she's talking to this possum mother who's, talking about, like how it is to be. She's like, look, as a mother of 7, and then in the background and off screen, you hear a possum child screaming and like this something is like growling and these violent, vicious sounds. And the mom just looks. As a mother of 6 kids, and then like another kid just going, Mom, I'm still alive. Oh, yay. Again, it's an incredibly harsh movie, and it's awesome. My favorite scene in the movie is kind of both things at the same time. It's right after Bright Bill leaves, because he goes on his migration, and I'm going to put a pin to remind myself to talk about the movie's pacing, because it's really fucking weird. And I don't dislike it. I actually think it's kind of neat, but it's weird. But, Bright Bill has just left, and Roz doesn't really know how she feels, partially because she's feeling and she's a robot and it goes against her programming and all that shit. And so Fink comes up to her and is talking to her. She's like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Am I supposed to go back to the factory? Like, I kind of want to, but I only really want to because I'm supposed to. I don't really know. And Fink's like, dude, like, you're my friend. You're like the only friend I have. I'd like for you to stay, but I don't want to say it. I don't know. And the way the conversation plays out, she's like, hey, Fink, what do you do when you love someone? And his immediate reaction, like, you see him smiling, he's so excited, he's like, you tell him that you love them, and you stay with them, and he's like, oh, yes, she loves me. And again, not in like a romantic way, because it doesn't have to be a romantic way, but it's like, she cares enough about me, and our relationship and friendship matters enough to her that she wants to stay with me. I have a bond that matters. It's earlier in the film when he's telling a story to Bright Bill, and, it's this very sweet story about, like a mother's love, and, a plea for a mother is heard by a robot in space and all that kind of shit. And she's like, hey, for someone who says he's not an expert on love, you're really good at talking about it. It's a really sweet story. To which Fink tells her, like, well, I mean, you grow up without something, you imagine what it's like to have it. I'm like, ooh, I felt that. I'm kind of here. But, fast forward, him hearing her say, what do you do when you love someone? He's like, this is it. I finally got it, and I'm so happy. And then after he tells her, it's like, you tell them, you stay with them. Well, what do you do if it's too late? And you can just feel his disappointment. I don't even think, like, I saw his face. I just, like, as soon as she said it, I felt she's not talking about me. She's talking about Bright Bill. She's talking about her son. She doesn't love me. Why would she? No one else ever has. And it's not like a spiteful, angry. It's like, I just felt how much he hurt. And then you get his response, which is like, well, I wouldn't know. No one's ever felt that way about me. And then when she turns around to talk to him, he's gone. That is my favorite scene in the movie, because it is that perfect combination of authentic, where you see his excitement, you have Roz trying to figure out what she feels and what's important to her, and like, did I completely irrevocably fuck up this relationship that mattered to me, and will I never see my son again, combined with that harshness? It works so well. Let me take that pin out. So, the basic plot of the film. Roz is, what was it called? I'm gonna call it like a Roswell, and I'm 99% sure that's wrong. I just saw the movie, I don't even remember. So she is a robot that her whole thing is, you give it a task, and it gets the task. She's a Mr. Meeseeks as a robot. I'm sorry, ever since I watched Word Girl, because my nephew watched a lot of Word Girl, I just pronounce the word robot as robot. I am sorry. It's not even like a bit. It's a weird habit now. Anyways, but Roz, her thing is like, alright, you give me a task, I will see that task to completion. So she's surrounded by animals, so she has to teach herself how to speak animal. Don't worry about it. And is trying to get animals to give her a task so she can find her purpose. However, it keeps not happening and not happening and not happening, and then she comes across an egg. Because I believe she had fallen from a great height, or was it I don't remember exactly what it was. It's pretty early on in the movie. She ends up causing an accident, which ends up destroying this family of geese. And there's this bit that I really enjoyed where, it sounds really fucked up, where she finds a broken egg and is trying to put the pieces together. And I really liked that moment. But then she finds the intact egg, it hatches, and then it imprints on her. So she starts raising this goose, this gosling, and she is trying to teach him the necessary skills so that he can go on migration, because if he stays on the island when winter comes, he's going to die. Harsh fucking movie. So, it's said a couple times early on when Bright Bill's still a little baby that, yes, I destroyed his family. I killed everyone he may have loved. And Fig's I don't know, maybe don't tell him that, or tell him when he's ready, kind of thing. She's oh, okay. I can see what's happening. I know what we're trying to set up. It's maybe not quite liar reveal, but you're hiding a secret that they're gonna find out. They're gonna be mad. They're gonna be upset. We're gonna have the whole third act breakup. I get it. So we get that, but it happens at the end of the first act. It arguably happens partway through the first act. This movie is only an hour and 40 minutes, including the credits. It feels way longer than that. And Clay hit it right on the head, where he's the movie feels very dense. It just feels like there's a lot that's happening. And I think that's accurate. But I think part of it is also because the pacing is so strange. Let me put it like this. What I described as being the plot of the film is the first act of the film. Of trying to teach him how to fly and all that shit. He has a big training montage, and then he goes off and he's he gets to fly in Bill Nye's special wing. And yeah, wait, why is there an hour left? This feels like where the movie would normally end. I don't know, maybe you're gonna have something a little bit after, but it reminded me a lot of Gone Girl, which is not something I thought I would say about The Wild Robot. Where, I won't spoil Gone Girl, but there was a point partway through the movie where I said to myself, I know what the twist is going to be. because this is such an interesting idea for the movie to do. And I feel like with the way the story is being presented and the kind of tone the movie has, it's 100% going to do this. And I was right. The thing is, I was expecting it to be the ending. And there were still like 45 minutes after this twist got revealed. And I remember just sitting there and thinking to myself, I am so in. Because now I have no idea where this movie is going. And I cannot wait for where it's going to take me. And that was kind of how I felt with the, like, not to that degree of excitement, but just that, I don't know where we're going anymore. Okay, let's see what we get. So from that point onwards, you essentially get the second act is Bright Bill's story and Roz's story. So Bright Bill is, they go on the migration, and one of the things I really like about this movie is they don't really expound upon what's going on with humanity, but you can kind of infer it and figure it out. Or it seems like there was some kind of post-apocalyptic event. It seems like it was some kind of a virus, because the geese, what is it? I think there's a storm, so they have to land. And they end up landing in, I don't know if compound's the right word, but they land in some kind of human settlement and are seen as a contamination. And then they send a bunch of aggressive robots to kill them. Like, hey, we can't be contaminated and not be sick. And like, I don't think a word is spoken by the humans in this movie. I'm like, this is really interesting. But his thing is doing that, and because he understands robots and like their patterns and behavior, he's able to lead them effectively. Also in the training montage, because he's a run, he has like really small wings, so they get a falcon to teach him how to fly well, and the falcon is voiced by Ving Rhames, and that's cool as hell. There's a bear who's a recurring character in the movie who gets a few lines near the end, and he's voiced by Mark Hamill, and I just appreciated that. Sorry, where was I? Oh, yeah. So, like, Bright Bill does all his shit. One thing I do find interesting, because like I said, you got a third act breakup, but it happens at the end of the first act, is although Roz is still helping Bright Bill because it's her task, but also because this is her son and she's kind of going beyond her programming, they don't make up at the end of the first act. There is a lot that's left unsaid, and it's very uncomfortable for both of them, where he very much just wants to be like, I hate the way that things happen. Like, you destroyed my family. You kind of destroyed my chance at a normal life. I'm the freak. You're also my mom, and you've done a lot for me, and I love you, and I still think that, and I still feel that. I'm just going through a lot right now. And Roz wanting to be able to make it up to him and like be okay, but again, trying to work through the fact that she is feeling it all is something that she's struggling with. And one of my, there's a lot of, like, again, like little moments and scenes in this movie that I absolutely love. One of the, I think it's their last conversation before he leaves, is he's like, hey, I mean, are you going to be here when I get back? No. It's like, damn. Like, that was, again, kind of mean, kind of harsh. And just how devastated he is when he hears that. And then Roz's story is, now that winter has come in, it's a really bad storm. So Fink is kind of sniffing out the other animals in their burrows. Roz is digging them out and taking them into her home that she built. And it kind of becomes like a sanctuary where it's like, look, if you're in Roz's house, it's a truce. It doesn't matter if you're predator, if you're prey, if you hate each other, you don't fight in here. Which, the reason this happens is because there's a giant fight in the house. And as I'm watching all the animals fighting each other, after Roz did all this shit to save them, we talk about unity and coming together and blah, 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 blah. My brain is just thinking of Mewtwo Strikes Back. I don't know. It just reminded me of that. Like, hey, you're reminding me of a movie I absolutely love. Warts and all. I don't care. I love Mewtwo Strikes Back. Entei might be the better movie. I'm not gonna fight that opinion, but heck. Roz does use her, like, signal to basically call home base, say, hey, pick me up so I can go back to the factory, but then quickly kills the signal. So, that's basically the second act of the film, and then the third act of the film is the geese come back, so Bright Bill comes back. Roz is happy to see that her son is doing okay, and that he's with his people, and then she's going to go back to the factory. And then we meet our antagonist for the climax. Vanta, I think was her name? Who is this robot with, like, these spindly black tentacle arms, and she was so distracting. Like, I know I've seen this design somewhere. It looks so familiar, and Clay thought the same thing. We agreed, like, it kind of reminds us of like, the aliens from Chicken Little. Like, it's not one-to-one, but, like, it felt close. Also, Clay kept saying, he's like, dude, Roz's design reminds me so much of the, from Castle in the Sky. Like, a robot from Castle in the Sky. Like, I don't know, I could see it. And there's a point where we had kind of said, like, alright, if I see her with some moss, maybe we'll see it. And then later in the movie, she's covered in moss. Like, okay, I can kind of see the vision. It is a very Studio Ghibli kind of esque film. But anyways, so Vanta is there to collect Roz, and I just kind of loved her. Just this character who's very perky and very happy. He's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'm programmed to be super friendly, so that way my targets feel comfortable and at ease. But don't worry, I am very morally neutral. Like, that was so... Like, she reminds me a lot of a character that I've been writing in, like, a particular chapter, and she's one of my favorite characters in this project. So, like, that, I appreciated that a lot. But the climax is Roz is like, I want to stay because I'm a wild robot, and I immediately did the fucking Leo point at the screen. One of my favorite memes. But so, the animals get together and they fight off an army of robots, but then the forest starts burning down, but they're able to stop it because the beaver has been eating through a tree, and they push the tree down onto the river, and it, blah, 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 blah. The fire looks so fucking pretty, by the way. Like, I love the color. Like, it's not like this dark red. It's almost kind of more like a pink. It was very visually striking. But, like, they're able to do that, and Vanta ends up getting killed by, like, a super magnet. It was kind of cool as hell, actually. Roz gets her memories wiped, but it's okay because her son came back to her. He's like, I love you, Mom, and that made her, like, wake up and feel again. And it's one of those things, like, the whole climax was, like, look, I get it. How much of this do I actually buy? Like, that they're actually capable of this? I don't know. But I was also like, you know what? Genuinely, I'm liking this movie a lot. I'm liking the vibes of this movie. I like the characters in this movie. I don't care that it's maybe a little convenient, maybe a little too easy. I'm just going to say, fuck it. I'll buy it. It works. And afterwards, after all of this destruction, the animal's like, yeah, we came together and we did it. Roz is like, they're gonna keep coming for me. I can't put you all in danger. I have to go. Which, on the one hand, there's a part of me that doesn't like it. Just because I'm like, I don't know, it almost feels like the entire, like, we had this big climax and... Hey, so the whole point of the climax was, let's make sure they don't take Roz, just for Roz to afterwards say, nah, it's okay, you can take me. But I do think it makes sense. So, like, alright, everyone came together for a common purpose. Roz has found her place, but because she's found her place, because she's found her people, she has to protect it, and this is the way she can. So she ends up going back to the factory and, like, gets wiped, which this part all happens off screen. And the end of the movie is Bright Bill seeing her on, assumedly, the next migration, like during a migration, and the two of them recognizing each other, and it's okay because they're a mother and son, and the duo, or like the bond between a mother and son, is a fucking beautiful thing, and this movie's great. Like, it really is. I know I said, hey, it's no Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, because unlike Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, I unironically really liked this movie. Although, I do have to shout out Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, having one of my favorite DreamWorks jokes. I had to pretend to have a spine, Mom! That shit still makes me laugh when I think about it. But also, I think of just some of the really mean, fucked up shit from this movie. Like, I don't know, I was laughing pretty hard. But again, I feel like it is offset, or I don't want to say offset, because that makes it sound like it makes it sound like they cancel each other out. Balanced is the better word. It is balanced by how genuine and authentic this movie is. And then Clay was like, I don't know, it can be kind of like being kind of ironic about it, because he genuinely also really liked it too. I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of what love is. Love can be very cringe. And that's kind of the way it works. So, I absolutely loved it. Like I said, it's nice to watch a DreamWorks movie again, because I've been really behind. It feels nice to see something new and go, I just want to sit down and fucking talk about this, or like sit down and take notes so I can talk about this. I've kind of missed this. In terms of what I would rate it, it's a strong A at worst. I don't remember what I had in S tier. I know Puss in Boots 2 and The Last Wish were my double... sorry. Puss in Boots 2 and The Last Wish, like those were separate movies. The Last Wish and the first Kung Fu Panda were my double S tiers, but I think in S I had like Shrek, Shrek 2, The Prince of Egypt. I'm very like close to thinking Megamind, How to Train Your Dragon 1. I'm blanking now on other DreamWorks movies. I don't think Madagascar was in there. Or actually, like, Madagascar 3. It was really close, though, because I actually thought the movie was great. I feel like there's some really good, obvious DreamWorks movies I'm missing. I'm just kind of blanking right now. I will say, this movie was directed by Chris Sanders. I believe Sanders is the last name. And I saw the name, my brain went, wait a second, isn't he one half of the How to Train Your Lilo and Stitch duo? And that is correct, because it's him, and I don't remember the name of the other guy, but it was the other guy that did How to Train Your Dragon 2 and How to Train Your Dragon 3, which I don't really like. And Sanders also did the first Croods movie. I don't know if he did the second one as well, but I know he did the Croods. And I remember talking to Clay after we had watched Croods and the How to Train Your Dragon sequels, like, okay, I think this guy, which is Sanders, like, he's the guy that I think really got the emotional stuff. Like, I feel like this is the guy that did Nani and Lilo, and the other guy was the dude that did all the stuff with the aliens. Because that's kind of how the How to Train Your Dragon sequels feel. Like, it's more about, here's the cool monster stuff, and the strong emotional moments, at least for me, while they are there, don't feel nearly as impactful compared to the Croods, where, again, I'm not going to say the Croods was phenomenal. I thought it was fine. But, like, that moment where I actually thought, oh, Nicolas Cage isn't going to be with his family anymore, and I believed it, is a really good moment. Would have been a lot better if they stuck to it, but hey. The Wild Robot definitely feels like this is the guy who wrote Nani and Lilo. I think it's fantastic. Like I said, it's a strong A at worst. I could definitely see myself putting it in S. I cannot recommend the movie enough. Go see it if you have the chance. I think that's it. I'll see you in the next one.